One X Developer Podcast.
What's up, my ones and X's?
It's good. No, that's the best one so far.
You think that's good? I thought it was a little cheesy. I don't know.
That's by far the best one we've come up with so far.
It's like ladies and gentlemen, but it's ones and X's.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who's the ones and who's the X's here, but like, I don't know. You can choose whose side are you on. You know.
Yeah, one. Well, I did have someone ask me one time. We were in class, and he's like, "When it comes to binary, like, are you more on the ones or the zero side? Like, who do you kind of rolling with? You know?"
I think zero, right? Zero is cooler than one.
I mean, one is bigger than zero.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a movie that I saw probably at least 2 years ago called Tim's Vermeer. Tim's Vermeer. Every time I try to write that, I forget, like, okay, is it Vermeer or Vermeer? It's Vermeer.
Vermeer, yeah.
Yeah. And Brennan just watched it, last week or?
Last night.
Last night?
Fresh in my mind.
Very fresh. All right, great.
Yep.
That's good. So what is, since it's fresher in your mind, what is Tim's Vermeer about? Tim's
Vermeer is about a guy named Tim who he invented a 3D modeling software whose name I'm blanking on right now. Lightwave, something like that.
Yeah, Lightwave.
But he is a technology guy. He does software. He did a bunch of like TV studio stuff, it sounds like. And he kind of describes this vision he had where he was sitting in bed just thinking, he was like, what would it be like to paint a Vermeer? And so Vermeer is I keep saying Renaissance, but it's actually post-Renaissance Dutch painter, one of the master painters, very well regarded, very well studied. And Tim was like, what would it be like to paint one of those paintings? And so he kind of does this deep dive, and he comes across this theory that basically says that Vermeer may have painted with the assistance of an optical device of some kind. Vermeer is known for these like bright colors and this kind of like photographic reality to his paintings that other painters of the time didn't really have. And so there's some discussion about like, did he do this all from his imagination? Did he do this all freehand, or was he doing this with the assistance of some kind of device that let him see these colors in a way that other people at the time weren't seeing them? And so
I feel like if I hadn't seen the movie, what you're describing right there sounds a little bit like Ancient Aliens. You know, like he's got some sort of technology that it's been lost to time. But the technology has not been lost to time, or at least Tim recreates it completely.
Yeah. Well, we should say that he proves that it's possible he used it. Right.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
They don't really come to a final conclusion about like, yes, this was definitely what he did. My wife actually had a huge problem. She felt like they presented this as like definitely, but I think they say pretty clearly in the movie that it's not definitive. It's just kind of a theory that Tim was testing.
I remember feeling like it was pretty open-ended, but I guess while we're on that, I will say, if I do have any critiques of this documentary, first of all, it's a really good documentary. It's like might be my favorite documentary. Not that I've seen a whole lot, but it's up there for me. If I do have to critique the documentary, first of all, I have a little bit of a problem with like documentarians inserting themselves a little bit too much into the documentary. And so that was one weird thing. This movie is directed by Penn and Teller, which is like, what? Okay. And I feel like it would have been better if I just like didn't know that. That's just a me thing, I guess. I mean, I know like Werner Herzog does that a little bit, where like he's like a character in the documentary, sort of. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like, I don't know, like it's like when you're interviewing someone, like the interview is about them, right? It's not about you interviewing them. I don't know. I guess it's kind of okay because Tim is like Penn's friend in real life, but
Right.
I don't. There's that, but then also I do feel like there's a little bit of baggage that comes with that because like Penn and Teller have like their bullshit show where like their whole thing is that they make really strong claims about things. So maybe that like will cloud the way people think it's being presented in a way. Because I feel like typically that's how they present things, at least in that show, is like, oh, it's like this, like this is what this means. So I don't know. I wish it was like one of those instances where you like look at the Wikipedia or you look at the IMDb and you're like, oh, this is directed by Penn Jillette. And that's weird.
That's interesting. I didn't. Yeah, I don't have any strong opinion about a documentary filmmaker showing up in their own film. Did you know? Can I tell you something? I got Penn and Teller's autograph. It's
really?
Like one of 2 autographs I've ever gotten in my life. I know these are 2 distinct people, but like one autograph experience I got.
So it's signed by both of them, actually?
Mm-hmm.
What's the other autograph you have?
Michael Dukakis.
Who is that?
He ran for president in like 1988 or something.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think I have any autographs, really. That's amazing.
But yeah,
my friend actually recently went to Vegas, and he was like on stage with Penn and Teller as like the volunteer.
Whoa! They just called someone up from the audience.
Yeah, I guess. I saw the picture, but I could show it to you off off the podcast. But yeah, he was on stage with them.
That would be terrifying. They like shoot things off people's heads and like chop.
Yeah, actually,
off
I don't even know what
they
did to him. Yeah, I don't know.
My autograph is covered in blood. It's like the playbill from the show, and it's covered in blood because the last act was like had a lot of fake blood going on.
Okay.
Anyway, neither here nor there, but it was just funny. I will say though, I have a lot of respect for Penn. I think that the bullshit show was, the ones I've seen have been good for the most part, and I kind of thought it was a good fit for the documentary because, it is this theory that is an alternative to what the expert consensus at the moment, as far as I understand. Like most people do not believe right now that he used these optical devices. So this is kind of like an alternative theory and a rewriting of history. So I thought the like Penn being associated with the skepticism of the bullshit show was a good fit.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that does make sense, because that's like a major kind of thread in the documentary, is that there's people in the art world that are like actually kind of offended just by even suggesting that maybe he didn't do this just purely from painting skill.
Right.
And, I wanted to get into that a little bit because that's something I always find interesting. Like, some people say that Shakespeare couldn't have been just one guy who wrote all those things. Like they say it's just impossible that one person wrote so much great stuff. And I think there's theories similarly about like Da Vinci. And I don't know, I always find that interesting when it's like there's someone who's just so beyond what everybody else is doing that that people just start wondering, like, is this even actually possible?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I've never read any of those theories about Shakespeare. Like what evidence is there other than the fact that he was prolific? Like, are there different
I think that's mostly
writing styles and stuff like that?
Maybe, but I think the main thing is just that because he also died kind of young, I think, a little. Maybe I'm misremembering, but basically, just if you look at his catalog, it's like, he wrote all this, and I think it's also like, I don't think it's just the amount, but also like the ratio of like banger to duds is like just nobody had really done that.
Yeah. Shakespeare out here making bangers.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean, you look at like Shakespeare's discography, and it's just like he's clear, Oh, there's a whole wiki page, the Shakespeare authorship question. It is considered a fringe theory, but I remember, I think in like my high school class, they brought this up. People say that the name could have been like a pseudonym of some kind, so there was like multiple people. I don't know.
That one I have heard that, Shakespeare was not just some guy, like he was someone maybe more famous or something, writing under a pen name.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was a big problem that my wife had with it, was the fact that this idea of Vermeer using this device is divisive. It's not agreed upon, and she felt like the documentary really portrayed it as like this is the way it happened. And I don't know. I didn't quite get that impression, but
What do you think? Do you think he used the what is it called, the photograph of the camera obscura?
so it, it's somewhere during the film he decides that he didn't use the camera obscura, that he like used a slightly different method, and so he loses that. I'm not sure what the final device is called. It's like a lens suspended in the air with a mirror at the far side of the thing.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if it actually has a name. Yeah. So I guess we should explain for the audience. Like, so the idea is that he had this like it's a pretty simple device, really. There's just like a couple mirrors and a lens, so that you can basically it's almost like a projector that is like you point it in one room or at some scene, and then you have a exact projection on your table in front of you, and you can effectively like trace it, which is what Tim does in the movie. Is he's basically just tracing this projection that he has in front of him.
yeah, there's a small mirror about like something like that he's looking through, and basically what he ends up trying to do is when he's painting, he's trying to match exactly the colors that he's seeing in the mirror with the edge of the canvas. And basically he says like when you're doing that right, the edge of the mirror completely disappears, and that's how you can kind of like get exact colors. And he kind of describes it as like it turns it into a mechanical process. It's less of an artistic thing and more of just like a robotic kind of thing that you can do. Like as much time as you're willing to spend on it, you can
I
make
remember
it look
that
good.
because that's interesting. Like, so a big question that kind of comes up is like people seem to argue like, okay, is this sort of cheating, right? If you're like tracing, but one of the things that he kind of points out is that, well, even if you're like quote unquote tracing the image, it's still like really freaking hard to do. And then he even points one of the things that comes up is that the models that he has kind of acting in the scene that he's making, because you have to recreate the entire scene. So he builds this entire room and has actors and stuff stand in place. Like just the fact that they have to sit still for like 6 hours at a time, like that's kind of insane.
Yeah. 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 Like makes his daughter do it for one.
Yeah, yeah. Is that artistry? I don't know, but it's something to give props to. You know.
Yeah, no, it still was tremendously labor intensive. I mean, even after he built the entire recreation of the room, like the actual painting process took him several months, 3 months or
Months. Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Um,
And he accentuates like it was like only someone who was obsessed with this could have done it.
yeah, I don't know how much time he was spending, but yeah, every day for months he was doing this, and it was still. And I think it's probably if the theory holds and Vermeer did use this stuff, I think it's fair to say Vermeer spent like even more time on his painting. It's um,
Yeah,
it much more. Yeah, there's more to it.
yeah. The only thing is he didn't have to build the like. I assume that was like a room that was existed, you know. So maybe he had to have some people stand there, but not he didn't build it from scratch.
Right.
So
Yeah. But I think that that idea of using technology to produce art, the idea that that's somehow cheating is very bizarre. Like I was thinking about this during the documentary. I mean, it's so arbitrary where we draw the line about what is, what is cheating and what is not, right? Like at some point, I assume the first paintings were like blood on a stick or something, right? Like
yeah,
even the paintbrush itself, even canvas, those are technologies that were introduced to make people's lives easier and to make
exactly.
the
Yeah,
process of creating art easier. It just seems so arbitrary to cut it off and be like, no, oil paint on canvas is the only real art.
yeah. Well, okay, so let's get into that because that was one of the two main reasons why I kind of wanted to bring this up and talk about this on the podcast. This is a tech podcast, by the way. We talk about programming here, but that that's a big part of the movie, right? It's like if you use some tool to make things easier, does that somehow detract from your creation? And I had a feeling you would feel that way because I feel like this is a topic that's very much in the consciousness right now with AI tools and everything. But it's a topic that's come up before. I mean, I think even just oil paints versus acrylic is like a debate, right? Like, oh, acrylic isn't rare. It's like it's easy, and
Yeah.
I had a feeling you would. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, if you can use technology in ways to make things easier. Uh, I had a feeling you would say that because you're also into electronic music, and that's always the big thing, right? It's like, oh, you guys are cheating because you're just pushing a button instead of like learning an instrument for years or whatever. Uh, because obviously, if it's super easy to do what Aphex Twin did, right? Like,
Right.
that's really you can just throw that together. You just tell the computer what to do.
Right.
And there's like countless examples of that. I mean, I know like in the DJing world when like CDJs came out, people were like, no, it has to be like physical vinyl spinning. If you're not beat matching yourself, you're not really doing it. Now there are arguments like people say that the beat matching software like sounds different in some way, or has like a different effect. And that's the thing with like acrylic paint does look different from oil paint, so there is something to be said about that. I wonder, are you like a purist in any type of? Is there anything where you're like, no, we got to do it the old school way, that or just because it was better, or for some other reason?
I can't think of one. I'm pretty open to technology. That's not to say though that, well, I buy a lot of vinyl.
Right.
I suppose that's one. But like kind of like you were saying, I think that the places where I think that maybe like the old school way of doing it is better, it's because I believe it's functionally better. Like that we are
Yeah.
actually losing something by doing it the new way, you know?
Yeah. So I will say that I've long been a little bit of a CGI hater in movies, but
Oh.
it's really not like I really don't have a problem with CGI like as a concept. Like I've seen it used really well. It's more just like when it's bad, I feel like it stands out
Hmm.
really like it's like really bad when it's bad. um, I don't really subscribe to the idea that like, oh, we should use practical effects because that's like has more artistic merit or anything like that. It's more just like I've seen a lot of really bad CGI and it makes me upset.
Do you think there are movies coming out today, like mainstream movies that have really bad CGI?
Um, I see stuff here and like a lot of the time it'll be like the movie overall looks okay, but there'll be like one scene that's like, oh, that looks gross.
Hmm.
I know there was a Marvel movie that came out that Twitter was just dunking on because it had a lot of really bad effects. I don't know what it was. I didn't see that one. Um, but I feel like I've seen movies recently that did not look very good. Uh, it's really common in TV shows.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'll see TV because they have less budget, they have less time. But I'll see TV shows where I see something and I'm like, yeah, it didn't look very good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, about TV. Because I kind of felt like, yeah, major movies these days had gotten to a point where like it was all pretty good. You know, you didn't have to blow your entire
Yeah,
budget, but maybe I don't know. That's probably not the case for TV.
I'll say there's time. Like I think like the last movie I saw, I did see. I remember seeing Black Adam, and that like looked pretty bad.
Hmm.
A lot of the effects looked pretty bad. It was also just a really bad movie. Uh,
I bet it's,
so yeah.
I bet it's kind of hard. I'm sure that those, I don't know how all that stuff works, but I'm sure that they have like multiple animation studios doing different parts of the movie. And like they, I'm sure that parts of the movie are considered like more important than other parts and that
Oh
they,
yeah, for sure.
they put more into it. And some other background shot they just don't really care about and it might look shitty.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely part of it. So I don't know. I guess I could almost be considered a purist in that way, but generally I'm like, hey, what works is good. So
Yeah.
I think it was last episode. I was talking about my list of movies I want to watch.
Hmm.
Was that last episode at the end? Yeah. So the other day I watched eight and a half by what's his name, the Italian guy who's like, geez, everyone thinks I'm so stupid right now. Fellini.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so it is a really good movie. And what I was thinking about is I kind of have this idea like this is kind of jumping to the AI stuff. Like if an AI movie was generated that was like eight and a half, like let's say, imagine we're like in a parallel universe where this movie never came out and like it was AI generated. That doesn't really make sense because this is like a really old movie, but I don't know. But just kind of as a thought experiment, like if AI had generated this movie, would it still be great?
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's a film where the main character is basically a self-insert for Fellini, right? It's about a director who's struggling to make a movie, and he's struggling to. It's pretty much all about being an artist, right? Like the critics, and like his producers are in his ear, and then he has all these doubts about himself, and and then it's really exploring why does he even make films, and it's really overall pretty negative. Like it's very damning of himself in a way about. There's some implications that he because his character and I'm led to believe that it's pretty autobiographical, not in a literal sense, but like in terms of like character exploration. It's pretty implied that he a lot of what draws him to making films is like being in control of people,
Hmm.
particularly women, right? And being able to like tell women what to do and kind of be, and getting women, like being famous and being rich. Um, and so the thing is, like, this whole movie is predicated on all this like meta contextual stuff about the fact that it is written and directed by a famous avant-garde director, and it's a movie about an avant-garde director trying to figure out what he's going to make. And so the movie itself, I mean, the title, I had to look this up. The title Eight and a Half is because he had made 8 feature films and a few short films.
Hmm.
So it's eight and a half, as in this is his eight and a half movie, which is perfect because the movie, it's like the movie doesn't have a title. It just like is a movie, like because the project in the film that's being made is also like not like a real movie. So it's like I don't know. It's all really genius. But the thing is, so you think about all that concept, and you think like an AI. If AI somehow did generate that, none of that would work. It wouldn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Because it's a computer creating a story about a guy. I mean, yeah, it's still a guy who's struggling, and we can still identify with him and stuff, I guess. But really, the fact that it's a movie directed by Fellini is what kind of makes it work. And there's I feel like there's other movies like that. Nothing really comes to mind, or other projects like that where the person making it is part of what makes it what it is. But I feel like that's something because I'm pretty like we've talked about AI a lot on the show, and I feel like we're pretty in the middle. Like, hey, we think it has really good uses, and we think that there's some limitations, but we're not like we were just saying. Like, we're not against technology as a tool for making art if it expresses something.
Yeah.
But if you have something that is created by a computer about this very human experience, I feel like we are losing something. Actually,
Let me ask you this. If you, let's say you're like 16 years old, you're getting into movies, maybe you know the name Fellini, but you don't really know that this movie is supposed to be about him. You just think like, you're just like kind of looking into film and you don't know any of the backstory and you were to watch this. You feel like the movie would suffer for that?
I think so. Yeah, and this is a lot of stuff I looked up after the fact too. I mean, but uh, Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those movies that a lot of people watch in film school, and I imagine a lot of people in film school are like, "Yeah, I don't really get it. I don't really see what the big deal is,"
Hmm. I
except for the
just
technical aspect. Because for a film at the time period, it is, visually it's really incredible. There's a lot of really crazy stuff going on with the camera and stuff.
I just think that's always a really interesting idea. Like when knowing the backstory of something kind of enhances it. And yeah, you're right. With AI, there's going to be this question of like, if AI had generated this and there was no backstory, there was no human behind the thought process that created this, are we losing something there? I think that's a really interesting question.
Or I mean, I think like a lot of like rap music. I think you could say is kind of like that. I mean, rappers tend to rap about themselves and their own lives, and they'll say things like, I just won a Grammy with no features or something like that, and they actually did. If they didn't actually do that, it wouldn't really work. Or they mentioned some beef they had with someone or whatever. You know,
but
there's
but that's something that's been like kind of changing in recent years, right? Like, aren't a lot of rappers, especially like, aren't we past the age where anyone cares if they actually did what they're who's the big one I'm thinking of that like didn't do, he just totally made up a persona? Is it Rick Ross? He's just like,
uh, I think there's a few. I think there's a few like that.
I think, yeah, like, so they're, I think they're kind of betting on that nobody really cares about the authenticity anymore.
Right, right.
They just want good bars or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a different thing. I mean, I'm thinking more like when like Travis Scott says, "I just hit a three-peat," and he has just released three successful albums. It's like, okay, that's pretty hard. You know, if he just says that, then it's like, what are you even talking about? Is this something? Is this something in your personal life? Are you like, are you like, did you just go on like did you get a kill streak on Call of Duty? Like, what is it? Like, but
That's
I
funny.
think like a lot like this is like the third time we bring up Kanye West on this show for some reason. But like he raps a lot about his own personal life on his albums,
Mhm.
which recently makes a lot of his new albums suck. And to the point that it's like I think we should just not be. I think no one should be buying his albums. Honestly, I'll just say at this point. But uh, like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, he's talking about personal things, and on Yay, he's talking about like personal things in his personal life and his relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think like AI could generate those albums.
What would happen? What would happen if it did? Right? Like, because it's going to happen that it's going to generate. I'm sure if I went to the Soma or whatever the AI rap generator these days, like I'm sure it would generate bars like that, right? It would be like,
Oh yeah,
I just hit a three-peat, and it's like
yeah. It's
it
just the
would be
meaning
kind
is
of
gone.
strange.
Yeah, that's the thing. The context is gone. And I mean, I wonder. Like, I have seen some people who have said like they've like asked the tools to like make a web comic about being an AI or something, and it's like they're usually like these kind of dark like it usually is focused on how if no one is asking it a question, it's like it ceases to exist or
Hmm.
something, which is interesting, but like in a very different way, right? Like the thing is, like I can relate to Fellini, I can relate to my favorite rapper, right? Because I've had successes in my own life, I've had struggles in my own life. I don't really understand what it's like to. Not, I mean, I do sleep, I guess, but like I can't relate to this. Like art is effectively about human experiences, right? So I feel like there's a limitation there. I feel like that's a limitation that can't be overcome.
That's interesting. I don't know if I don't know if I agree with that or not. I think I feel like an AI could generate something compelling and even say something compelling about human experiences just because it was trained on this enormous corpus of information about human experiences. You know what I mean? Um, whether it would really resonate or not, I think is remains to be seen. But like, I think I think we're gonna have things in the next within the next 5 years where it's going to be like, yeah, that really, like, that hit me. It really resonated with me. And then it turns out it was just like written by a robot.
Yeah, maybe. I'll just say that I have yet to see that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like all the way I've been putting it, like the best way I can explain it is like AI art isn't, it's not really good at making like art. It's really good at making content,
Mhm.
right? It makes really good content, but I don't feel like it really makes good like art. And I think that's the big fear a lot of people have is like, there's plenty of content out there. We don't really need more content, right? We need more like art. We want more like we want less movies and we want more like films, right? We want less tracks and we want more songs, you know.
Yeah. That was another really interesting thing to bring it back to Tim's Vermeer. They don't do this in the movie, but this morning my wife and I were looking at Tim's Vermeer side by side with the original Vermeer, and
Yeah.
it was really, really interesting to see, like, he created an excellent copy. But there's something missing from it. You can see him when you look at it side by side. Like, Vermeer's has something that his doesn't. His is flatter, it's more muted, and Vermeer's kind of like the colors are more vibrant. There's more, I don't know, life to it. It's hard to describe, but I think this is very much similar to AI created art. It's like this was a replica. This was a copy. It
Yeah.
didn't have, and also it should be mentioned that Tim didn't do any of the composition and stuff like that
Right. Yeah.
goes into it too. But yeah, it was. I think that's a really interesting point in the movie too. Is he creating art? I don't know.
Is the differences between the painting, could that potentially be because of the age of one of the paintings?
Yeah, I mean these are taken from pictures online, so
Yeah.
there's no telling what kind of like color correction and stuff like that.
Well,
And
that too. But I also I know that like you know, like a lot of people associate like Renaissance paintings with like that yellow hue, but like supposedly like they didn't really have that. Like that's just because they're like hundreds of years old.
would they get more? Would they get brighter though? Wouldn't they get like more muted and maybe
Yeah, the like I don't really know how else to explain it, but just like that old look that they have, you know, like
Mhm.
like the Mona Lisa, right? It's got that kind of yellowy. Like I don't think it looked like that at first. It was more like what a fresh painting would look like.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could be. The Vermeer definitely has, a lot of signs of age that are obvious, like cracks in the paint and stuff like that.
Oh, no, the thing I was thinking of is I just learned this recently. Like people associate ancient Rome with like these white marble statues, but at the time they would have been painted.
Oh,
And they're all just white now because the paint has like come off or something.
really?
Yeah, like I hope this is true and not just like some like Facebook information I read, but like uh that's definitely what I saw.
That'd be wild to see painted Roman statues.
Yeah. Greek and ancient Greek and Roman statues originally were painted. This is what they should look like. And I can't. I mean, there's pictures here.
I like to imagine that like the sculpture was immaculate and perfect, but like the paint job was just trash.
I think they weren't very good, honestly. I mean, uh, like if you look at the paint that they had and stuff, I don't know. Maybe they were.
But I mean, painting style has come a long way. Like paintings from 2,000 years ago are not very good by our standards today. They don't have good perspective and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the pigments, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if the statue of David was originally painted. It was, apparently. That seems crazy. That's just crazy to even think of. Yeah, historians believe David was originally painted in vivid colors, including gold accents.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
That's just weird. Yeah. Um, well, that was actually something I wanted to get into, though. When I was in Milan with some friends, we went and visited the Last Supper, um, which was pretty interesting. So I'm not like a huge art guy, despite talking about art on this podcast all the time. But one of the things that was really interesting is, it was like a guided tour, um, and because that's really the only way you could do. You have to like schedule in advance a time to go see it
Hmm.
because it's in like this climate controlled room. There's like 2 or 3 layers of like sealed doors you have to go through. They like you go in one, they like close the door behind you, and then you wait for like a minute, and then the next door opens, and they all of this is so that the humidity is all super controlled to uh, keep the painting as like in shape as possible.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. um, so when we were about to go in, the tour guide said, she's like, I know this is really hard, but what I want you guys to do is when you walk in, on the left is going to be the Last Supper, because it's like a mural on a wall, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the room is it actually was a dining room, and so on the left side there's the Last Supper, and on the right side is some other painting that this is what she was explaining is also would have been considered really incredible at the time. It's like, I want you to walk in, I want you to look to the right and look at that painting, and for like 15 seconds or something, and then I'll tell you guys to turn around and then look at the Last Supper, so you can get a sense of like this is what good paintings were like, and then you can turn around and see what Da Vinci did, right? And so we went ahead and did it, and I mean that first painting, I mean, like I mean, Da Vinci clears like like it's a sweet, it's like it's not even. I mean, I'm sure you can look it up, but yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. And I remember learning while we were there that one of the things Da Vinci did supposedly was he like invented a new paint for this
Hmm.
because something about like because it was directly on the wall, he couldn't use like regular like canvas paint, and the paint that they used for walls was like not the right color, like or not the right it like wasn't the what he wanted. So he went and like invented his own paint just for this.
Wow.
And that kind of gets into what we were talking about of like, you know, like paintbrushes being a technology. And it kind of gets into the topic that the movie also gets into, which is like this separation of artists and engineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, I hear that story and I think like, okay, Da Vinci was well, we all know Da Vinci was actually both, right? He really could do both. He was special,
Yeah.
but like I mean, that's a situation where the two are blended together, right? He engineered a new technique for an artistic purpose.
Right.
And I don't see any reason why Vermeer couldn't have done the same with like some lens system or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things, one of the counter arguments to that in the movie that they talk about is like, well, then why don't we see in this with other paintings of the time, right? And
Right.
they spend a little bit of time talking about that painters of the time were secretive even about their pigments mixes and stuff like that. They were very like secretive about their techniques and stuff. I don't know if that's true or not, but in the movie they made it sound like it's totally possible that he could have used this device and just like not told anybody about it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I mean I don't think Da Vinci told anybody how to do what he did.
Died with him. But yeah, so we were going to talk a little about that that separation between engineer and artist. And I think in the movie Tim considers himself an engineer. He's a guy who invents stuff and he tinkers with stuff. And I think even at the end of the movie, after he's painted this Vermeer, copied this Vermeer, whatever you want to call it, I think he's pretty straightforward about like the real, kind of like I was saying a minute ago, the real artistry is in Vermeer's composition and things like that. So I don't think Tim considers himself an artist. It's more just like a proof of with this technology, somebody with no painting training could produce something similar. But yeah, my wife was not, she felt like in the movie that separation between engineer and artist was kind of like overstated. She doesn't think that people really think that in real life. Do you think people think that? That you're one or the other?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely think that there's like I hear people use phrases like left brain or right brained, and I hear it seems like people tend to put I don't know about like real like like high end artists and engineers as like they do one or the other, but I think a lot of people try to put people into the box of one or the other, which I think is unfair. I think a lot of people are good at both.
Yeah, I I think so too. That it really rings true to me. I think people do separate, at least in our time, they separate people that way. Or yeah, maybe not people, but at least activities. I think people think
Yeah,
activities are one thing, are either creative and artistic, or they are
yeah.
STEM, basically.
People are like, oh, he's a creative type, or he's more of a logical person, and same thing with like introvert versus extrovert. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
he's an extrovert, he's an introvert. I wonder a lot if that's even a thing. Like, I feel like there's just like personalities that are different. I don't know.
Do you think there's some kind of, I don't know, do you think there's at least like a spectrum that you're somewhere along the way, or do you
Oh, for
think it's,
sure. Yeah, I think there's a spectrum, and I remember on Jocko podcast they were talking about this, and Jocko was really saying how like you can totally learn to be one or the other too, right?
mm,
Like he in as a Navy SEAL, he'd seen people that were really introverted, really quiet, but then they learn how to be like a commander, a leader in a military setting. So, uh, and I mean, you see that. I mean, I've seen that in myself, right? Like when uh, I'm still pretty introverted, but uh, I was always I was like really quiet and shy as a kid, and I definitely advanced as I got older.
it's something you can observe in yourself and then work on, right? You can develop
Yeah,
the skills to become the other one.
I mean, maybe you can't like maybe you'll always lean one way, like maybe you'll always be an introvert who's disguising himself as an extrovert in some way. I don't know if you can learn to like being one or the other, but you can definitely learn like how to be social.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. I think that by the time you're at least a young adult, let's say like 25 or something, I think that what comes naturally to you is more or less set in stone. That's not to say you can't learn to be the other one or act like
Yeah.
the other one, but I think you do have like a, I don't know, a
So
preference,
maybe,
one
yeah,
that comes naturally.
maybe you are born one way or the other. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I've really wanted to do a podcast episode about the creative aspects of programming because I think that that's programming and software is this thing that always gets put into like the STEM category. Like these are not creative endeavors. These are hard scientific
Yeah.
kind of things. And I've never felt that's the case. I've always felt that there's a lot of creativity in programming that people don't recognize. And I think that I think it's related to like the puzzle solving kind of stuff um
Yeah.
that we've talked about before. It's like if you I mean that stuff is very creative. You have to come up with new and interesting and creative solutions to problems. And I think if you're not good at that, you probably won't be a very good programmer.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that is really interesting. And we talked a little bit off off recording, off One X Developer, where we were talking a little bit about like how programmers tend to have a lot of similar interests outside of programming. And one that's like undeniable, I think everyone's noticed, is music, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always a music guy in every dev team. Like it's a
Yeah.
regular thing that programmers are like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And one of them is, oh yeah, I set up my studio, whatever, got a new whatever, like there's something there that I find interesting and I wonder about. Like, is there something similar about music to programming? Is there something similar about the mindset?
I absolutely think there is something similar. Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on, but I think it has to do with being coming up with creative solutions to problems within a given set of constraints, if that makes sense. Like in music, you there are rules that you kind of abide by, and you kind of play within. You have a lot of creativity within those rules. And I think in programming, it's kind of similar. Like once you have a language picked and a framework picked, there are certain rules that you have to abide. You don't have to, like, you're free to like pull in another framework to do something, right?
Yeah. I mean, that comes with a cost. Yeah. You have, realistically, there's limitations. Yeah.
Right. And I think that those kind of constraints spur on creativity. I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on, but I absolutely think there's a relationship there between music and programming.
Yeah, that makes sense. I often wonder if, like, because I think, like, something that got me interested in, I've talked about before how I studied electrical engineering in college. One of the things that got me interested in electrical engineering was music and, like, music hardware, and I wanted to kind of understand that stuff more.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder if there's something like that. There's definitely something there with, like, video games, because that's another one. Like, a lot of programmers are into video games, which also has that kind of, okay, here's, you can do these moves. You can interact with this world in this way. How are you going to bend it to what you want to do in the game? Mm-hmm. But also the more obvious, like, how does this game work? Why does it work this way? What's happening when there's a loading screen? Those things. You ask those questions, and you'll get interested in programming to some extent.
Right. Yeah. How do I make my own? How can I make a game?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Of course. Well, you have anything else to say about Tim's Vermeer?
I don't think so. I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was really, really, just fascinating. Just kind of an oddball thing. Yeah, that Penn Jillette is friends with this guy, and they just decided to make a documentary about his like 5 years of work to produce this one painting. I thought it was just a really odd, interesting concept.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that. Like documentaries about just like some weird little thing. Less documentaries about people killing people and eating their bodies or whatever.
Yeah. Agreed.
You want to talk about art versus content. That's what I'm talking about.
They just churn those out, man. It's just
just churn them out.
My friend's wife was watching some documentary about squatters the other night. It was about like just people squatting in houses, and I don't know. It seemed really dark. Could be interesting.
Squatting is interesting, I guess.
I think the things that would lead someone to be a squatter, that's interesting, right? Like that's an interesting conversation. How did you?
That's an interesting lifestyle, yeah.
How'd you end up squatting in this house?
All right. Should we transition into Whose Side Are You On?
Let's do it.
All right. Play the Whose Side Are You On music. Okay, so this kind of fits the episode a little bit. This is something I've seen a little bit on Twitter. Are programmers engineers? Are we lying to ourselves when we call ourselves software engineers?
Oh. I don't think so. I think software engineering is a real thing. I think that designing software, I guess I don't know the actual definition of an engineer, but I tend to think of it that you're orchestrating a lot of moving parts, right? You're kind of like engineering involves taking these different systems and making them into a harmoniously operating machine or system of some kind.
Yeah, I think by definition, I'm pretty sure software engineers are engineers. I mean, a person who is trained in or follows as a profession a branch of engineering, a person who carries through an enterprise by skillful or artful contrivance. Oh, for sure, yeah. A person who carries through an enterprise by skillful or or artful contrivance. 100% right there. But by definition, yeah. I think though, like the spirit of the question is like, I feel like the word engineer like gives someone an impression of something, like I think what they're trying to say is that like people pushing buttons on a computer isn't as real as like building a bridge. I think that's what they're trying to do, trying to say.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So is that kind of is that like the prototypical example of an engineer is like designing a bridge or building a bridge, something like that?
Yeah, well, or maybe like building cars. I mean, the root word is
Hmm.
engine, so that makes me feel like, yeah, someone who like builds engines is probably I don't know.
I'm going to say this. I do have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction in response to the term engineer, and I think it comes from when I was in high school. I got a job, and it was like a straight-up call center. You're on a headset. You're doing tech support. And I was a customer service engineer, and I just thought that was like completely ridiculous. Even
Yeah,
at
what does that even mean?
even at 18 years old, I was like, it's fun to have a badge, I guess, but this is stupid.
That's weird, yeah, because you're not building anything, right? You're managing something. I've heard customer support specialist, like that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think representative, right? You're a
representative is
representative
good.
of the
Yeah,
company on the customer service team.
yeah. There's better words there. What do they call it? Like sandwich artists? That's like what
Yeah,
they call them at Subway.
yeah, that's right.
That's kind of what customer support engineer sounds like to me.
Sandwich artist. I love it.
They should be sandwich engineers. Well, I mean, there's both. There's that's a perfect example of artistry and engineering together,
That's right.
making a perfect sandwich. You can't have. I mean, you need both. You need the creativity, but you can't. I mean, you need that structure too.
Can't just put any old thing on a sandwich, man. You can't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
be
If
putting.
it's all liquids on there, like that's gonna. Have you ever had a sandwich with just way too much liquid?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. They just went crazy with the oil and vinegar, and then there's like not really anything holding it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever had a pizza with too much liquid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sandwich engineer. But yeah, so I do have kind of a knee jerk reaction against the term engineer when I feel like they're not really engineers. I feel like software development is engineering, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I feel like I kind of get where people are coming from, where they don't like that word, but it kind of goes back to like the gatekeeping kind of thing we talked about a few episodes back.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that seems a little bit arbitrary to say it's not engineering. Yeah, but but yeah, I do understand. That said, I wouldn't take offense if somebody didn't call me an engineer. I don't think
Oh yeah.
programmer, coder, like, it's all good.
I don't really like coder actually.
Really?
I just don't like the way it sounds. It just sounds goofy to me.
Does
Coder.
it sound like
Coder.
script kiddie?
No, it's not like that. It's more like I don't know, something about it gives me like it sounds like a redneck like coder. You're a coder. I'm a coder. But you know what I mean? That's like that's not. Well, I'm a programmer. I do write code, but like coder. I don't know. That sounds weird to me. I don't know.
Coder.
Coder.
Get over here.
Coder.
That's hilarious.
I'm not like offended by it or anything like that. I just think I prefer developer or programmer or really any of those other ones.
Yeah. That's funny.
Okay, how about this? How do you feel about software architect?
I think that's actually technically my official job title.
Oh, let's go.
I'm also okay with that one. I do think maybe
what is architect like? What does that mean?
I think there's a little bit more of an argument for that one in the same way that people argue against engineer. I think there's a little more of an argument against architect. But I don't know. In the same way, you are architecting systems out of smaller components, you know?
Okay, yeah, because so like when I hear architect, I think buildings. Like I think really buildings is what comes to my head. But like really, when you start looking at the dictionary definition, okay, a person who designs and guides a plan or undertaking, like the example, the architect of American foreign policy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah, if you can architect a policy, you can architect a software. That makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, in that sense, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what about like those teams that just straight up have goofy like? Isn't like Ninja? Have you ever heard that? There's like Agile Ninja or whatever, or like uh, Scrum Master. I've always thought Scrum Master is like what? What? Why are you
Are,
called that? Why
are
aren't
there
you just a project manager?
are there people who have like Code Ninja as their official job title, or they just go by that
I think
as
I'm sure there's somewhere that does it. I think that's a little bit more common in like startups. They'll have like Ninja as a job title.
instead of a senior, you have a rock star?
Yeah, yeah. Ninja, Rockstar, Evangelist. Yeah, dude. According to Business Insider, Rockstar and Ninja are becoming increasingly typical job titles.
Hmm.
That feels like it would be not good. I mean, I've never really cared what my title is, except for the fact that my next employer might care, you know?
Right.
And I would hate to be like, yeah, I'm senior code ninja, you know?
Yeah.
And really just because like you want your title to reflect what you do, you know?
I think
You want
that's the
people to know
real
what you
problem
do.
with it. It's totally
Yeah.
unclear what a code ninja does on a day-to-day basis. Like, are you writing code? Are you, I don't know.
Code Ninja gives me like a script kiddie vibe, you know? That gives me very junior vibe.
Yeah, I agree. I I think it's a little bit different if somebody assigns you the name, but if you willingly go by Code Ninja, I don't know. I don't like that.
I don't know why I just unlocked a thought in my head that I had the other day. Okay, this is a non-technical. Whose side are you on? Who do you think ties a better knot? A pirate or a cowboy?
I think a pirate. I feel like knots are more important in nautical environments.
Yeah, I mean, gut reaction is you think sailors tie the best knots across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you think about it, and like cowboy, I mean, you got to be able to tie a knot that like holds back a freaking ox, right?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, cowboys are no slouches, but I think that I think the life and death scenarios involving knots are there's more of those for the
Okay,
sailor.
yeah,
So
that's
that's
true.
my vote.
They probably are tying more like different types of knots for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboy's probably got like one or two really good knots he does on everything.
Yeah, yeah. I would think a handful. Yeah, maybe
A,
one,
a
two, three
cowboy
knots.
a cowboy doesn't even tie his own shoes. Cowboy boots don't have laces.
Oh, that's a good point. Really good
Jeez,
point.
what am I talking about? Of course, it's pirate ties a better knot.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. More variety of knots, more yeah, just more. I I don't even know why there's so many kinds of knots on a ship, right? Why do we need
Oh
all these
yeah, I
different
don't know.
kinds of knots?
I don't know. I mean, I know that there's like different. There are like different things that they'll tie, or like sometimes on a boat, like they'll have like the anchor, like the thing that the anchor attaches to will be like a bar with like two prongs that holds it to the boat. So you gotta like you can't just like tie it like a shoe. I guess you could, but you tie it like you put the rope through. Yeah, I guess I don't know why. It seems like there should be like one topologically correct knot.
Right. Yeah, I don't understand why different knots have different properties. Isn't there just like one that's the best knot?
Well, okay, I'll say this: like on a yo-yo, you tie a slip knot because you want to undo it and then tighten it back up on your finger, right?
Okay. So the ease of being able to untie quickly and retie?
Well, so a slip knot doesn't I mean, yeah, you don't untie the slip knot of a yo-yo. You can just pull on the string and it loosens, and then
Oh,
and then you can like put your finger in there and lift it up, and it'll tighten back up again.
I see.
So like that makes sense.
Are you a yo-yo guy?
A little bit, yeah.
What?
I think my yo-yo's upstairs.
I did not know this about you. I'm learning things about Colin right now.
I mean, I don't know if I'm a yo-yo guy, but like I know some tricks. Yeah, my
Walk the
yo-yo's
dog?
upstairs. Yeah, I can walk the dog. Yeah, I bought a yo-yo a while back. I don't know why it just got in my head to start doing it again. And then I started going through, there's like a list of like, on like yoyolearning.com or whatever, there's like a list of like all these tricks that you should know for like each tier of like skill level or whatever. And I couldn't even get through the first tier. Like there's like so many tricks that I'm like, wait, I don't even know how to do this. And I couldn't even get to do it. But I can do some tricks. I might do that. Next episode.
Yeah, I think you should show it off.
All right. This isn't a very good room. Like, I'm definitely not doing around the world in here.
Yeah,
But
you're just like breaking all the shit in your room.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up.
All right, Tim's Vermeer. Check it out.
I'm the Vermeer of yo-yos. All right. See you guys.
See ya.
1x Developer Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Colin. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the 1x Developer Podcast, and let you know that if you have any questions, comments, or if you just want to tell us about your day, you can reach us at X, formerly known as Twitter, at 1x Developer Podcast. We're also on YouTube at 1x Developer Podcast. You can email us if you're weird at 1xdeveloperpodcast at protonmail.com. And lastly, don't forget to follow, subscribe, all that stuff, so you don't miss any further episodes of the 1x Developer Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.